Good morning, students. So next one we are going to discuss about the pollination. Okay, what is pollination? So pollination, we know that pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma is called as the what is that pollination. Okay, so these pollen may be transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or different flower or different same plant in the different plants. Okay, so based this is a mediated factor, some of the pollinating agents. Okay, so these pollinating agents like a wind, water, insect, birds, etc. is there. Okay, this is the vehicles of the pollination. These are all called as the vehicles of the pollination. Why it is called as the vehicle of the pollination? Some of the flower that consisting of male part, female part. Okay, so what happen, it takes the one pollen grain from the male part, a male flower, and then it transfer the another female flower. Okay, that's why it is called as the what is it, important vehicles for the pollination. Okay, there will be a two types of pollination is the one is the self pollination, another one is the cross pollination. What is self pollination? Self pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower on the same plant. If you are taking one plant, the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower, single flower, you can see that from the single flower, or it may be the same plant, but the flower is different. That is called as the self pollination within the plant. So these self pollination generally takes place in the bisexual flowers. Okay, why it takes in the bisexual flowers? Because both male and female gametes are present in the same flower. That's why it happens in the bisexual flowers. Okay, so it may also occur between the unisexual flowers. Okay, some of the unisexual flowers also the self pollination happens. Okay, what are all the advantages of the self pollination? It is the very easiest and most likely method. It is the very easiest and most likely method, and then it preserves the parental characters. It preserves the parental characters indefinitely. Okay, because the gametes of the same flowers of the same plant are involved. That's why it preserves the parental characters, and then it produces the small quantity of the pollen grain is sufficient for that. Okay, there will be a no need for the more pollen grains. Okay, the small quantity of the pollen grain is sufficient, so it is economical. Okay, so the next one is the flowers need not to produce the nectar or fragrance because of the both of the gametes are present in the same flower, so no need to produce the nectar and then fragrance. Okay, unisexual flower only produce the nectar and fragrance because it needs the pollinating agents. Okay, this is the self pollination, and then cross pollination also there. So the next one is the cross pollination. So cross pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of different plant in a species, different plant in the same species. That is called as the cross pollination. You can see that. Okay, so here one flower is the another plant, one flower is the, so the pollination happens from one plant to the another plant of the same species. That is called as the cross pollination. This cross pollination occurs in the unisexual flowers as well as some of the bisexual flowers also, majorly unisexual flowers. It is carried by the what is it, pollinating agents like insect, birds, wind, and then water. Okay, these are all the things which is helpful for the pollination. Okay, these advantages of the cross pollination is the seeds are produced that contains the viable, okay, viable and then healthier seeds. It produces the viable and healthier seeds. So seeds are produced, it is a better germinating capacity. The seeds produced from the cross pollination, and then it has the better germinating capacity, and then it is the source of the variation. So if we cross one plant to the another plants, so the flower gets varied. Okay, so it is a major source of the variation. These are all the advantages of the cross pollination. So if sometimes they will ask the question, differentiate between the self pollination and then cross pollination. Okay, so differentiation, if they are asking the differentiation, we need to write what is it. One is self pollination that occurs in the same flower, same plant. That cross pollination occurs in the different species. Agent of self pollination, that no need for the agents, pollinating agents, and then cross pollination needs the pollinating agents, and then small number of pollen grains is sufficient for self pollination. Large number of the pollen grains or wastage of the pollen grains are produced in the cross pollination, and then flowers are not attractive in the self pollination, but cross pollination need to flowers attract, and then no need to produce the flower and then fragrance and other things, but cross pollination in the flowers generally produce the fragrance or nectar. Okay, these are all the differentiation of the self pollination and then cross pollination. Okay students, thank you.